Well, pull up a chair and set a spell here at Tales from SYL Ranch Live, the vlogcast that reminds you to always know where your towel is. And I'm your host, Bill Stone. And tonight on Tales from SYL Ranch, we have the Fandi Masters mini review of the Orville Season 2, Episode 4, Nothing Left on Earth Except Fishes. And we also have the Star Trek Discovery Season 2 opener. So to explain my show for the benefit of new viewers or people who might not come in at the top of the hour so that I give you a chance to get to the review, I do live reviews. Sometimes I do serious films and TV, sometimes I do schlock, and sometimes I review modern films or TV with a broad appeal, such as The Orville or Star Trek Discovery. I will take any and all questions, comments, and nasty remarks. You can tell me if I missed something, if I'm completely full of crap, or if I just happen to be amazingly hoopy-frood. I go into more depth than most reviewers. I don't just say if I liked a film or not. I go into the acting, the direction, the cinematography, and some of the mechanics of making a film. And I can do this because a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, I was once an actor, and so I speak with a modicum of authority. Not as much as a modern working actor, I never want to give that impression, but with some authority. As they often say, those who can do, and those who can't teach. Now, my Orville and Discovery reviews are mini reviews. I don't go into quite the same amount of depth as I do during my regular Monday reviews, but I still think that you'll probably find that I go into more depth than most other reviewers on YouTube. So, my first review will be for the Orville Season 2, Episode 4, and the non-spoiler review on this one. Unfortunately, due to the keen eye of one of my viewers, Cartoon Fan 959, this was totally predictable. It had a disconnected A-B plot, which I dislike seeing. Would I watch it? Yes, but really only to see how this ending then bleeds into future Krill stories. So, having given that non-spoiler review, I guess that I will issue myself a...
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! All hands, prepare for incoming spoilers.
Yes, it is a spoiler alert, and that is because I am the Fandi Master, and that means that the fandom is strong with me, and that means that nothing is new, nothing is original, and at worst, I figure it out about a half an hour too early. This is neither a boast nor a brag. This is sadly where you'll find yourself after having watched, read, and listened to about 100 years worth of science fiction. You just can't see all the new stuff for the century that came before, and you discover there isn't really much that's new in the world, and sometimes it interferes with your ability to enjoy things. And sadly, that was the case with tonight's episode of The Orville. So, to go through the plot, well, I'm not going to do it. I assume that if you sat through my spoiler alert, you have either seen the show or you just don't care if it's going to be completely spoiled for you. Now, cringe moments. I always like to get my cringe moments out of the way, and as I said in the non-spoiler, because of my viewer, Cartoon Fan 959, who called it on the very first episode, this was totally predictable. I saw everything coming. It had a disconnected A-B plot with Mercer and Gordon. I hate seeing disconnected A-B plots. This is part of what killed Star Trek during the Birdman era. You had disconnected A-B plots. Now, in terms of my great moments, sadly, I had none. Not this episode. I really didn't have any great moments. There was nothing here that jumped out at me as being really great or awesome. It was just totally predictable. And I hate when that happens. I hate it. So, writers on this, because I always like to call writers out first. You can have the most talented people in front of and behind the cameras, and we did this time, as usual. If you don't have a good script, you ain't got nothing. Now, this was not Supergirl bad. If you want to go back and watch my Supergirl review, this was not Supergirl bad. It was just predictable. Writers on this one, and I think this is why it turns out to be predictable. Writers on this are Brannon Braga. Now, I don't believe that I've gone through his IMDb because it hasn't come up except him being a producer so far. So I don't think that I have done his IMDb, and so I'm going to do that. Now, in my reviews, what I typically will try to do is walk through somebody's IMDb, give you an idea of what their qualifications were when they come to this, and maybe you can learn a little bit more about them. Brannon Braga, rather famous in Star Trek circles, his IMDb goes 1990 to 2019. He has 12 producer credits for 16 episodes of The Orville, 25 episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation, 169 episodes of Star Trek Voyager, and 98 episodes of Star Trek Enterprise. He also has 48 episodes of 24, 36 episodes of Salem, 22 episodes of Flash Forward, and 13 episodes of Cosmos. He also has 13 writing credits. Now, you have to understand that all of the time when you see just one credit, it will oftentimes translate into multiple episodes, which I sort of consider multiple jobs. His writing credits, he has 2 episodes of The Orville. He has 39 episodes of Star Trek Enterprise. He has 49 episodes of Star Trek Voyager and 54 episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation. He also wrote Star Trek Generations and Star Trek First Contact, as well as 16 episodes of 24. He also has 4 director credits, 4 for episodes of The Orville, and 13 episodes of Cosmos, basically the entire series. He has won awards. He won the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films Award in 2016, a Special Recognition Award. Now, I often say, you know, Oscars are fine. Emmys are okay, but if you really want to impress me, you must win the Hugo Award. And in fact, he won the Hugo Award in 1995, Best Dramatic Presentation for Star Trek The Next Generation, at a time when probably it was due. It was probably due at that point. Not so much what happened later, but at the point in, 1995, it was probably due. He also won the Peabody Awards in 2015 for Documentary and Education for Cosmos. He won the Producers Guild of America Awards in 2015 for Outstanding Producer of Nonfiction Television also for Cosmos. And he won the Sci-Fi Universe Magazine Best Writing for a Genre Motion Picture in 1995 for Star Trek Generations. What? Star Trek Generations. Not Star Trek The Next Generation, but Star Trek Generations, the first Star Trek film with the next-gen cast in it. I'm not sure why you want it there. Sci-Fi Universe Magazine, you must have extraordinarily low standards. And as I often do with characters or people or actors who have some connection, I play 6 Degrees of Star Trek. And of course, well, duh, he has a lot of 6 Degrees of Star Trek. The other writer on this is Andre Bormanis. Now, I could not find a picture of Andre Bormanis, unfortunately. His IMDb goes 1993 to 2019 with 7 miscellaneous crew credits, 7 of which for episodes of The Orville, 13 episodes of Cosmos, with which he worked with Brannon Braga, 135 episodes of Star Trek Voyager, 142 episodes of Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and Star Trek Insurrection, as well as 25 episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation. He has 8 writer credits, 2 for episodes of The Orville, 4 episodes of Mars, 23 episodes of Star Trek Enterprise, and 7 episodes of Star Trek Voyager. He also has 6 producer credits, 16 for The Orville, 22 episodes for Star Trek The Next Generation, and 17 episodes for Legend of the Seeker, as well as other stuff. I don't call out everything. That would take oftentimes an extraordinary amount of time. I just call out the big ones. And he has, of course, 6 Degrees of Star Trek. As the writing goes, as I say, thank you so much, my viewer, Cartoon Fan, make sure I get it right, Cartoon Fan 959. You called it, buddy. You called it right in the first episode. You called it. And as a result, because I agreed with you on the next episode I reviewed, I called you out and I said, gave you a shout out and said, yep, I think you're probably right. Yep. The only thing that surprised me about this is they didn't spend an episode or two with the two of them, getting to know each other. They just sort of went for it. I thought probably they'd spend some time getting the audience used to this character and thinking about them in a sympathetic way, as opposed to just Mercer talking about her in a sympathetic way and seeing one or two scenes with her. I thought maybe they'd drag that out, but they didn't. Hello, Larry. Larry, how are you doing this evening? Glad to see you here tonight. But I thought maybe they'd drag that out a little bit more, but they didn't, and that was probably to the detriment of the episode. In any case, Cartoon Fan 959, you were right, buddy. Shout out to you. You were right. I agreed with you in episode 2, and this is exactly what fracking happened. And unfortunately, the moment they decided to go on a trip, I knew that was it for them, that she was going to turn out to be a krill somehow, and this was going to be it. So, you got me, Cartoon Fan 959. Good call, well spotted. Breathing with your towel. Well, I'm not breathing with mine. You can see it over my shoulder here, as it often is in all of my pictures. I'm not breathing with it, but as I say, just a very predictable episode. And the fact that it had a very traditional A-B plot, the kind that we have come to see out of Brannon Braga's work. A-B plots. A plot where you have something going on over here with a character, you have something else going on over here with a character, and never the twain shall meet. A good story has an A, if it's going to have an A-B plot, which you don't have to have an A-B plot, you can just have a single plot like we did in the last episode. But if you're going to have an A-B plot, they need to hook up somewhere. Whatever the A plot is, the thing that's really threatening, and the B plot where a character is getting some character development, it should be that the B plot ties in. The character development over here should be something that is integral to the plot, where the character learns something about themselves that then helps resolve the A plot. They should tie in. And it was one of Star Trek's many deficiencies in the Berman era, and I must blame Brannon Braga for a chunk of this by the end, that A-B plots never connected. You had character development over here, you had, whatever's going on over there, and they just didn't connect at all. And that's what happened here. I think anytime we see Brannon Braga's name on the writer credits, we can probably assume that there will be an A-B plot that do not connect to anything. It was what he did with Star Trek Voyager, Star Trek Enterprise, and became so predictable that I think it was part of what led to Star Trek's downfall from the Berman era. You can't do an A-B plot like that. It's just the way it is. In terms of characters, well, of course, this is his episode. Captain Ed Mercer, played by Seth MacFarlane. His performance, I always like Seth MacFarlane. He is a generally likable-looking guy. It's not even necessarily his acting, particularly. I've seen him, when he's hosting things, and he's just a guy with has some charisma. You kind of want to like him just because he has the charisma. But, fine performance. I thought particularly when it looked like his girlfriend was getting tortured, I thought, okay, that makes perfect sense. However, I have to tell you, and that's part of the writing, I saw that thing with the command codes coming a mile away. Because, again, if you're going to do it right, that's what you do. You come up with fake command codes. It's called a honeypot in IT circles, and it'll come up very later in the show tonight. I was in IT for 40 years, man and boy, and I can tell you that honeypots are something we did all the time. What you do is you set up a server that is hackable, so that hackers will sit and play in it and not mess around with your real infrastructure. So, using this as not a new idea for me, or probably the military in general, put in a honeypot. And in fact, with a honeypot, what that means, if these guys go out and they try to use the command codes and they get into the honeypot, that means that you can watch them. You know exactly who's getting into your honeypot. So having a honeypot did not surprise me at all. That seemed to make perfect sense. Because otherwise, the only thing that you could do as a responsible ship captain is to not give out the codes. Even if they're going to kill your girlfriend, you should not give out the codes, because she is one life, and you would be putting the lives of hundreds, thousands, millions, potentially billions of people at risk if you gave out the command codes. So that did not surprise me. There was nothing in this episode that surprised me. Just nothing. There was nothing here. Once Cartoon Net Fan 959 had called it in the first episode, I knew this was all coming. I saw it all coming. It is, as always, the burden of a Fandi master. You have seen it all. You have watched, read, and listened to 100 years worth of science fiction, and you just saw everything coming from beginning to end. Larry says, did I hear the actress playing the female second-in-command and redhead bridge officer get engaged? No, she's... Commander Grayson is not engaged, I don't think. She's dating a teacher on the series. Well, if you're talking about the redhead bridge officer, my understanding is, well, no, that's not the case. I don't think, anyway. Not something I saw. They weren't getting engaged, certainly in this episode. It was the B plot where she was contributing to his character development. So it was a good performance by Seth MacFarlane, regardless of the fact that this was totally predictable from beginning to end. I still liked his performance. He is a charismatic guy with, by God, the best general American accent, with the exception of Vic Mignogna, that I have ever heard. He is somebody that I would like to emulate. When I'm sitting here, I usually try to talk in a general American accent, which is not a real accent. It is a accent that actors use from time to time. It's the accent that you hear when you're listening to the evening news. They all use that accent, but it's not a real accent. It is, however, close enough to my natural Midwestern accent that it's not hard for me to put on. But I slip up lots of times, usually when I get to the end of the episode, and I often wish that I could just do it the way that Seth MacFarlane does it, because he does. Did you hear the actors playing? Oh, are they getting married? I don't know. I don't pay that much attention to it. My understanding is that Seth MacFarlane is dating Halston Sage. I don't know if that's true for sure or not. I don't know. Maybe they are in real life. I don't know. Could be. I don't know. That's always really dicey when that sort of thing happens. Because, to be honest, relationships in Hollywood don't last very long. They tend to be very short. The only time they last very long is if you've got an actor who decides they want to quit acting. A lot of times, what you have to understand about most actors, it was certainly true of me. It was one of the things that helped me grow up, is getting over it. Certainly true of me when I was acting. Actors are incredibly self-centered. A science fiction author whose name I will not repeat because of the people involved, a well-known science fiction author, ended up having a after-dinner thing with him. He had done a speech at a college I went to, and a bunch of us science fiction fans. We got together, and we took him out to dinner afterwards. And what he said was, very simply, you can screw a Hollywood actress, but don't marry them. They are just too self-centered. And that's true with actors, too. It's not actresses, too. It's just everyone. On-set romances are sometimes volatile. Yeah, absolutely. Perfect example, Star Trek Voyager, when, God, why am I blanking on her name? Played 7 of 9. She was dating Brannon Braga, the producer, and everybody got pretty pissed about that. you know, when you're sleeping with the producer, it can become problematic. And when you have actors who are pretty self-centered to begin with, this can be very problematic. If they are getting married, you know, watch it, guys. Watch it. If you get, you know, divorced and you start hating each other's guts, please don't bring it onto the set. Speaking of whom, Adrienne Palicki, the beautiful Commander Kelly Grayson, and not her episode, barely in this episode, and really only there to help out with Gordon's character development. Penny Johnson as Dr. Claire Finn, not her episode, barely in the episode. Basically has about 4 lines, and that's about all. Scott Grimes as Lieutenant Gordon Malloy. Not his episode exactly. He gets to be the B plot that does not connect up to the A plot in any way. I would say that what he did was convincing. One certainly has to ask, as Kelly did, why are you doing this? Is it just so that you can get higher status? Or is it because you want to commit to doing command of a spaceship? And that part of it I thought was okay, where, you know, you're talking about something that does take a deep commitment. It's not like he started out doing last season, where he was almost a frack up. Real good pilot, but almost a frack up. You have to commit a little more. You know, you're talking about going to a position that's going to require a lot more of you, a lot more difficult choices. So, you know, I liked that he had some of that going on. I don't know if really in his head he's got it on straight for that, but we'll see as that goes forward. Oh, you say you did check. Adrienne Palicki and Scott Grimes are engaged. Watch it, guys. Watch it, watch it, watch it. There is every chance that you will eventually be divorced, and that will very likely have a negative impact on this show. Oh, gosh. Peter Mencken, Lieutenant Commander Bortus, about 1 line, not his episode. Jay Lee as Lieutenant Commander John Lamar. Was he even in the episode? If he was, I missed it. I don't think he was even in the episode. Mark Jackson as Isaac. I think he was in the episode for a couple of lines, not his episode at all. And then we get to Michaela McManus. As they say, my viewers, cartoon fan 969. He called it. He called it. First episode, he called it. As always, there is more for a Fandi master to learn. He called it, and I'll just walk through her IMDb because I don't think I ever have before. Her IMDb is 2006 to 2019. God, am I getting old? That's only a 13-year period, for God's sake. She has 1 filming, 1 in post. She has 30 acting credits, 3 of which are for the Orville, 22 episodes of Law and Order Special Victims Unit, 21 episodes of Aquarius, and 10 episodes of SEAL Team. And again, I don't call out everything that they've done. I just call out the stuff basically with the most episodes. Or if it's a noteworthy film, as we'll see as we get into later things. Grimes is divorced twice, and Palicki has been engaged to others before, as Larry says. As I say, performers tend to have egos. Big, big fracking egos. When I was acting, I took my cues from Zaphod Beeblebrox, who once said, if there's anything more important than me, I want it caught and shot now. And that's their egos. And when you get 2 egos that are so big, it can often lead to trouble. And Grimes is a longtime friend of Seth MacFarlane. Not shocked. There's a lot of people in here who are, or that came off of other shows that he did, so that doesn't stun me. In terms of Michaela McManus's performance, I thought she was fine. She certainly did a convincing job as a human who was definitely looked like she was in love with Mercer. That character would have been a fairly good actor. You know, just like Gordon, you have to ask, did they do it yet? because if they did, man, that opens up a whole weird can of worms, you know. I mean, if you were going to do surgery and look like a krill and get into a situation where you had to have sex with one of them, that would be pretty weird. As goes past my lower third from Sometimes, there's a quote that says, we all know interspecies romance is weird. That comes from, oh God, blanking his name, directed the first Batman movie, Tim Burton. It's a real life thing that Tim Burton said about something. So it asks a lot of questions that you don't want to answer, and that's why Mercer doesn't say anything about it, I'm quite certain. So again, shout out to Cartoon Fan 959, who figured out she was going to be an alien. You know, and the fact that the Union has technology that can make a human look like a krill certainly begged the question, can a krill have something that will make them look like a human? And they didn't have that holographic thing. She actually had some kind of, you know, chemical thing going on. Boy, that really stretched my suspension of disbelief, I have to tell you. Those aliens are so radically different. You know, it's not like a Klingon with a ridge on their head. You could conceivably take the ridge off, I mean, you know, shave it down, and turn them into something that looked human, because the rest of them looks human. They don't have this stuff everywhere. That begged a lot of questions for me. That really sort of stretched my disbelief. The fact that she said it was painful, sure, yeah, but man, it's like last season in Star Trek Discovery, turning one guy into a human from a Klingon. No, there's just too much involved there. There's too much involved. So it really stretched my suspension of disbelief. But again, Cartoon Fan 959, he called it. You know, in terms of her performance, again, she made a good human, I thought, did a good job. Somebody who is clearly a good actor in her own real life, in her own life as the character. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to pull that off. And then when she turns into a krill, she's, you know, given what Mercer did in that episode, which was kill everybody except her, you know, her reaction to him was perfectly normal. Hated his guts. Who wouldn't under those circumstances? Yeah, there were half human, half Klingons in Next Generation. Yes. Again, something you can believe, you know, something that is believable. But when you get an alien that is that alien, I don't know. The chemical stuff involved in making an alien like a krill look something like a human is one thing, but getting it right down to their genitalia, I don't know. Then there was everybody else. Everybody else, well, they were just guards and things like that, and crew members hanging around and doing this and that. Yeah, nothing really to talk about there. In terms of the production, the director on this, again, was John Cassar, which is weird because I saw a different director up until last night. Showing up on IMDb. I was prepared to go with that, but it wasn't necessary. John Cassar, we have seen him direct before. We saw him direct last episode. We're seeing him direct here. Last episode I mentioned that I thought it was nice that he got the camera moving some. You know, movement is a good thing. Here he was a little more constrained because you're doing location shooting, or at least I think he was doing location shooting. You never know anymore. This stuff could all be achieved in post. But doing location shooting, even with today's modern cameras, unless you're putting it on a drone or something like that, you do have limitations about how and where you can direct. So, you know, he wasn't as mobile. He didn't get as much movement in there. He did get some. But again, you're dealing with a different type of space. And, you know, even today's modern cameras have a hell of a time, unless you're going to spend a lot of money, have a hell of a time doing that type of terrain. Location green screen, Larry says. Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know. It looked like it was location. But then you know that they add all kinds of stuff later. You know, maybe the hill he was climbing up was real, but all the boulders were added afterwards. You just don't know. You just don't know. It's a problem as a reviewer doing this stuff. You just don't know what's achieved in post anymore. I know they achieved lighting in post. I know they altered lighting dramatically in post. So you never know what to call out on that. You know, it's not like some of the older films I review that you know what's going on. So. Cinematographer, again, is Marvin V. Rush, whose name is all over Star Trek, and I thought his direction was competent. Again, you're dealing with a situation where you had, I think, limited things that you could do with your cameras, and so the cinematography was relatively limited as well. No real complaints other than, as usual, it was all pretty static. But what can you do on location? The music, again, by Joel McNeely. I was happy to see that he is keeping going with his fairly large scores. Again, guys, just like I said last week, this show can bear bigger scores. You can do bigger stuff with this. Keep going. Don't be afraid to keep going. Joel, if you do stuff again, don't be afraid to keep going. This show can support a fairly large, bombastic score. Production designer, again, Stephen Lineweaver. Nothing really wrong with the production design. There's one thing, and that's where you get into caves. You know, I know it's really hard to do in real life, but a cave typically does not have a flat surface for a floor. Caves, we have seen these. It's a problem always. See it in Star Trek, the original series, Star Trek, The Next Generation. You get into a cave and the floor is somehow flat. I've been in a million caves. The Black Hills of South Dakota has one of the largest cave systems in it, and I have been in those. The floors are not flat. The only place the floors are flat is where they have concrete covered it over so that people can walk through. It is ordinarily jagged, and, I get that you need to have a flat surface to some extent. But if you're going to do a cave, try to do it right. Make the floor have stalactites. Let me see. Stalactites come from the ceiling. See stalactites or stalagmites, which are coming up from the floor. That's another thing. If you want to see a real cave system, if you want to see a colorful, real cave system, go out to Jewel Cave in the Black Hills of South Dakota. See what a cave can look like, other than just kind of generic. Go out there and try to make a cave like that. They do exist. They do exist. Larry says, most people are now saying that the Orville is Star Trek. Yeah. It certainly is in terms of the tone. It certainly is in terms of some of the scripts. I am worried now with this episode about the whole AB script. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. Last episode was much better. A single story. And it was working the way it should. The character development with Alara was such that it informed the end. She was the one who came through and did everything when it all went to hell. That's the sort of character development you should have when you're hooking it up to a larger story. That's good. A-B plots that do not connect to each other is bad, okay? Visual effects were generally by an army. Luke McDonald gets called out because he is listed as the visual effects supervisor. Larry says, some tourist caves are mostly enhanced by good lighting. That's true. However, again, if you go out to Jewel Cave in South Dakota, they just light it. Regular white light. And because it just naturally has some crystalline formations that are really quite amazing. If you go to Wind Cave, on the other hand, and that is a huge, gigantic cave system. By the way, they're still exploring both Jewel Cave and Wind Cave. And in fact, if you're small enough and young enough, I think I've now passed both the small and young stage, they will let you go in a natural entrance that involves crawling on your belly to get in. But again, go out there, guys. Take a look at some of those cave systems that are not, as Larry says, put with colored lighting and things like that. Just white lighting, and to see what it looks like. Look at the floor, for God's sake. You know, if you want to do something without any specific big lighting on it, again, Wind Cave is a huge cave system. It does. They do not do weird lighting with it. It is not incredibly, you know, ornate with lighting and stuff. Just go and look and see what a cave looks like, okay? They don't have flat surfaces on the bottom unless they have been covered over so that tourists can walk through it. Again, Luke McDonald is listed here as the visual effects supervisor. I liked the effects. I liked when the fighters were venting drive plasma to make their shuttle visible and all that. You know, hard to say anything bad about the special effects these days. You really only call them out if they're terrible. Most caves are wet on the ground. Yes, that's another thing, guys, who are doing production design for caves. They're not usually dry. A cave system, at least in the Black Hills, the ones that I'm familiar with, were created by a time when there was water running through them. They are the leftovers of that. And what will happen is water from the surface will collect on the surface, go down through the, what is it, the dirt system, the topsoil, and they will hit these caves and they will start to drip down. That's where you get stalactites and stalagmites. They are caused by water dripping down through different chemicals that will cause these stalagmites and stalactites. So look at those, guys. You wetting up your caves. Spray some water around them. Get them stalagmites and stalactites, not just sort of these crushy wall things. That's not what a real cave looks like, okay? Carlsbad Caverns are what you saw as a kid. Yeah, I have never been to Carlsbad Caverns. I've spent so much time in South Dakota. I oftentimes refer to myself as a South Dakotan living abroad now in Nebraska. You know, you see a lot of politicians who will be from a specific state, and they'll talk about how they love their state and all that, blah, blah, blah. I actually do love South Dakota. If I ran for office there, I could say that with actual sincerity, as opposed to just mouthing the words as they often do. But again, Luke McDonald as effects supervisor. There were, in fact, a number. You know, it's an army. It's an army, and you only really. I'm just calling him out because his name is on there as visual effects supervisor. I didn't even know what that really means in this context. So, you know, good effects. We really only care, call them out when they're bad, and there was no bad ones here. Costumes. Well, the costume designer, as has been the case through the rest of the series, Joseph Perot. And as I said last week, you get pictures of him like this, so I just kept it. His costume design is fine. We have basically seen all of these costumes before. We've seen the costumes of the Krill before. We have seen the costumes that are being used on people for their uniforms. There isn't much here that's new, and it all makes a certain level of sense. So nothing wrong with the costumes. Makeup department head is by Tammy Lane. She gets called out solely because she is the makeup department head. In reality, it looked like there was probably an army of people involved in the makeup. The Krill appliances were designed by some other company completely. So she gets called out simply because she is the makeup department head. And I have not called her out before, so I will say her IMDb. Covering his bald head in the photo. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Oh, you mean Joseph Perot? No, not at all. Not at all. I've seen other pictures of him. He's balding, but not badly, at least not in the pictures I've seen. He just likes to take weird pictures like this. I don't know why. I don't know why. Those are the sorts of pictures. Look, Google him. Do a Google image search. Or better still, do a DuckDuckGo image search on him, because Google sucks. And you'll find pictures of like this all over the place. For some weird reason, I think it's to show off all the rings. That may be it. He's just showing off all his rings that he's wearing. I don't know. But Tammy Lane, as again being called out because she's the makeup department head, and I don't know what that means in this context. But her IMDb is 1997 to 2019 with 41 makeup department credits, quite a number of them because she's got 14 episodes of The Orville, 10 episodes. This is makeup department. That in this particular case, makeup department often meant that she was an assistant makeup designer or something like that. Oh, he thinks he's Ringo Starr, Larry says. Maybe. You see this with costumers all the time. I've seen this with costumers, and I sort of get it. Your living is to do costumes. So when you're doing something for yourself, sometimes you're going to be way out there. And certainly I think, again, you can see these pictures of them all over the place. Not necessarily in this outfit, but similar kind of flamboyant outfits. They make costumes for themselves, and so sometimes the costumes are pretty flamboyant. Anyway, Tammy Lane, she has 41 makeup department credits with 14 episodes of The Orville, 10 episodes of Legion. She did The Amazing Spider-Man 2, The Hobbit movies, The Lord of the Rings movies, The Chronicles of Narnia movies, and Superman Returns. She also has 6 special effects credits, including Underdog and the Lord of the Rings movies. And she has won a number of awards. She won the Oscar in 2006 for Best Achievement in Makeup for The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. She has also won the Online Film and Television Association Awards in 2013, Best Makeup and Hairstyling for The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey, and in 2004, Best Makeup and Hairstyling for The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. Now, as I say, I call her out simply because she is listed as the, let me get the thing exactly, as makeup department head. That's what she gets called out for. But in point of fact, if you look very hard, it is an army of people. Is she from New Zealand or Australia? I don't know that. I didn't check far enough into it. I usually rely on IMDb's unless there's something really interesting going on, in which case I'll take a look over at Wikipedia. So I don't know for sure where she comes from. When it comes to makeup, for me, it doesn't really matter. You're doing makeup, you're doing makeup. Her makeup here is fine. Again, we have seen all this makeup before. We've seen the krill before. The only thing that I would criticize about the krill, and it's a criticism anytime you get into a particular alien race, is they all tend to look alike. I think if you're going to do that, you need to make some significant changes in terms of how each individual character looks. Because you run this risk of not being able to tell the difference unless you're told the difference, who is who. And it falls into that trap. It does fall into that trap. Now, that's not necessarily on her. As I said, you watch the credits, a totally different company was coming up with those, those appliances for the head. But I think if you're going to do that, if you're going to come up with a sort of, a standard way for a person to look, you need to make it specific to the individual. Human beings do not all look alike. And so maybe you can do something with where ridges are in different places, so they don't all have the exact same ones. As you're mentioning, all of those films were based in New Zealand and Australia. Yeah, it may very well be that she's from there. I don't know. Or it may be they just imported her. I don't know what the laws are. Sometimes those, countries have a law about who can do what and how many, have to be local as opposed to whom you can fly in and all that. And the fact that her first gig apparently was Superman Returns. That was filmed in Australia. It may very well be that she's Australian. Again, I didn't look that hard. I just looked at their IMDb mostly to see what they've done and if they have a 6 degrees of Star Trek. All of these people ultimately have a 6 degrees of Star Trek because we have so many Star Trek personnel involved in this show. It's why the show looks like Star Trek, particularly Berman-era Star Trek, aside from guys, get bigger with your scores. Emulate the original Star Trek series. This show will do that. And if you listen to some Star Trek the original series scores are kind of experimental. Go for it. Go for it. When we get to see these, when we get to see the Krill, go for unusual alien-sounding scores. This show will support that. So the makeup's fine. The only thing that I would say is be careful of getting characters who look exactly the same because they have full makeup appliances. Don't be afraid to make things slightly different, to change the location of individual spots. And, you know, people on Earth have different cheekbones, for example. We all have cheekbones, but some of us have cheekbones that are larger than others. Some of them have smaller. Some of them, like me, have a little fat on the cheekbones. Don't be afraid to do that. Make these characters look just a little bit different. Get your Goldsmith on. Yes, Goldsmith is another good one to emulate. Particularly some of his more experimental ones. Logan's Run. Some of what we heard in Supergirl, you know, stuff that's experimental. You know, don't be afraid to, when you see the Krill, when the Krill come on, when it's just Krill on, feel free to go kind of experimental. You know, make it alien-sounding music. You don't have to make it, you know, kind of low beat, uh-oh, we're in trouble, orchestral music. Go ahead and put in a blaster beam or something, you know. That is the review. That is the whole review for this. I didn't even do an hour on that one, which is pretty good because I'm going to do more than an hour on Star Trek Discovery. We can ask ourselves, is it any good? Well, again, unfortunately, due to the keen eye of my user, CartoonFan959, it was, to me, 100% totally predictable. The A-B plot bothered me. Oh, A-B plots, guys, stay away from those A-B plots. They are so predictable now. We saw them in Star Trek. It got really, really horrifying when we started to see it in Star Trek Enterprise. By then, it was so predictable. You know, you would always, it was every week, it was the same thing. You would have some technobabble thing going on here that is a problem with the ship. You'd have this B-plot going on over here, and never the twain shall meet. If you're going to do that, if you're going to have two separate threads going through, then you need to have the character in the B-plot learn something about themselves that is going to contribute to resolving the A-plot. They need to be connected in some way. Careful of that trap. That is a next generation Berman era, Brandon Braga era problem. Don't do that. And I think the fact that they had it was because they had Brandon Braga and he put that in there. Yes, Enterprise did have some story arcs, and that was good. The problem is, by the time they got to kind of doing it right, it was too late. They had lost too many viewers. I thought Season 4 was great. Season 4 was really good. If the rest of them had been as good as that, show might have stayed around longer. But, you know, you kept getting these repetitive A-B plots, and it was, I think it was really bad in Voyager. But it bled over into Enterprise. You know, we had the same people doing the same thing all the time. Be careful of this, guys. Be careful of those A-B plots. Brandon Braga, I'm looking at you. Be careful with the A-B plots. It is part of what contributed it, and in the case of Voyager, it may have been the major contributing factor to the downfall of that show. And the question, of course, should you watch it? Would I recommend it? Well, yes, but really only to see how the ending of this bleeds into future episodes with the Krill. Frankly, I don't see how you do anything, you know, in terms of getting things where you're going to do anything other than fight the Krill. You know, they have this deep religious philosophy that they're the only ones that have souls, and so nobody else matters. And it seems to be very, very racially ingrained. How do you fight that? Now, maybe this will bleed over into it. Oh, man, as a Fandi master, I have to wonder if they aren't going to have that character be the vanguard of somebody who is leading a movement, ultimately, that is trying to convince the Krill that other people have souls. I don't know. We'll see. They got Voyager home real quick when they had to finish the series. Yes, they did. I knew going into it that they would do that. You know, you can't have a 70-year duration flight unless you're prepared to do generation ship stories. You know, I actually think if they were going to do that, they should have done that. Generation stories, where maybe every year you completely change your cast, or age the old one and put the new ones in. So like maybe Janeway gets together with somebody and they have kids, and you know, first season is the cast we saw. Second season, totally different cast. The old ones may be around there as older people, but we say, okay, we're going to jump forward 20 years, and so we have a new cast. And the next season, you do exactly the same thing. Jump forward 20 years. You have to be, you know, Battlestar Galactica did that some. You have to be not afraid to jump forward. The Doctor Who does it all the time. You can't be afraid to jump forward. This is science fiction. This is science fiction. There's no reason that it has to be absolutely linear between every single year. You do a year with one cast, jump forward 20 years, do a year with another cast, jump forward 20 years, and every year you get something different. So that, you know, by the end, you might be on your 70th cast, you know, if you're lucky, if you have something that lasts that long. So, but that is my review of this episode of the Orville. I thought it was mediocre. I thought it was seeing everything coming, and I thought that be very, very careful about those A-B plots. Be very careful. It's much better to have a single plot going on rather than A-B plots. And if you're going to do it, the character who's learning something about themselves has to be something that contributes to the resolution of the bigger plot. So, is it any good? It's just mediocre. It's just mediocre, I think. Be careful about A-B plots, guys. And again, I would watch it, but mostly just to see how the ending of this episode maybe bleeds into future episodes. So that is my review of that episode of the Orville. So now I'm going to do my review of Star Trek Discovery, the first episode of Season 2, Home. Well, here we go again. I will not be reviewing all episodes of Star Trek Discovery this season, and that is because last season I hated this program, and reviewing all the episodes was a chore. It was painful, and so this year I will only do 3 reviews for episodes. This opening season episode, a mid-season review, and then a sort of, you know, wrap-up review at the end. I cannot sit through and do reviews all the time. I'll be watching the show. Don't get me wrong. I'll be watching the show so that I'll be caught up for when I do those reviews. But I just can't, unless they do something so radically different. I cannot see myself doing that. And, well, let me tell you the non-spoiler review for this. Non-spoiler review. It was exciting, but it felt like Jar Jar Abrams' Star Trek exciting. You know, you had lots of action, but if you look around that action, not very much happens in this story. Now, to be fair, Star Trek Discovery infected good Star Trek canon. Larry says, well, I'm going to get to that. And you'll notice behind me is the correct Enterprise from that period. To be fair, unlike most episodes of Star Trek Discovery, this did not want me to make me want to throw things at the television screen on my big 40-inch, causing it to be destroyed. That has happened in the past, where it has been a near thing that my 40-inch 4K monitor didn't die. But it didn't want to make me do that. It continued, as Larry says, it continued to confirm to me that this series is not in our prime timeline. As I said before, this is an alternate universe. No matter what people making it think, the tech is wrong, the casting is wrong, etc., etc., etc. You can walk through any number of things. It is all wrong for the original timeline. The original timeline, as I've said, as far as I'm concerned, once Star Trek Continues was over, original timeline got put on a shelf over there by itself. never to be touched again. The idiots running this may think that it's pre-original series, but it is not. It does not fit in any way. Whatever you guys think, you're not making original series era Star Trek. You are just making crap that is in a different universe. As usual, this sets up a season-long arc, which means that while the action scenes are exciting, very little plot happens. And I was befuddled by some of the lack of credits, and I will get into that in a minute. I am quite certain that a great deal of this episode was achieved in post-production, which makes doing it in a traditional review very, very hard, because I don't know what was achieved in post. In brief, I would say this episode wasn't horrible. At least we didn't see someone like Burnham starting a war for no good reason. And for those of you out there who thought it was a good reason, no, it wasn't. Here's how you handle this. You run to the Klingons. They say they don't want you around. You say, okay, guys, give us a call if you ever want to see us. That's it. That's all you do. Should have left. Is the production as a whole in turmoil? Larry asks. Well, I'm going to kind of get to that when I get to the writers. Yeah, I think it is in some level of turmoil. Abso-frackin-lutely. I think it's in some level of turmoil. So having given a non-spoiler review, I will issue myself yet another...
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. All hands, prepare for incoming spoilers.
Yes, it is a spoiler alert, and I'm not going to go through how, and why it's a spoiler alert and all of the Fandi Master stuff. I can say here that you cannot look at things, new things, without seeing the century that came before. And it does occasionally interfere with your ability to enjoy things, and it did here. I am not going through the story. If you saw it, you saw it. If you didn't see it, you don't care if I spoil it for you at this point in time. So, cringe moments. Oh, did I have a lot of cringe moments. Again, this is not in the Prime timeline. It cannot be. It is impossible. It is in its own alternate universe. I don't care what you morons who are running the show say. This show is in an alternate universe. I say this as an original series fan. We have put my timeline over here on a shelf, never to be touched again, and you shouldn't. You know, I said it when I was talking about the original series problem. Stop doing this stuff in the same era. If you had taken this show and moved it out away, way in the future, 30th century or something like that, all this tech would make perfect sense. Wouldn't have to screw with timeline or canon. You could, in fact, say that it was, something that occurred in the original timeline. But the way we've got it, it just can't. It just can't. It's impossible. Shields up, or should I say down? Well, up. Or take some, go get some penicillin, because watching this, you're watching STD. This episode is another one that is setting up a plot that in a more conventional show could be told in 1 or 2 episodes, but it will be stretched out over the entire season with a lot of semi-artificial drama, which is part of the reason I'm not reviewing every episode. There isn't going to be a hell of a lot that happens in any given episode. They will throw out a bit of characterization here, a bit of characterization there, and a bit of the plot here, a bit of the plot there. And it'll take, the entire episodes to get through to the end where we finally have a resolution. And, down to let it die. Yes. Yeah. They should take the shields down and let us just shoot it. More cringe moments. I thought that going to the Hiawatha was exactly like in the 2009 Star Trek film when Kirk and Sulu and that engineering guy took parachutes down to Vulcan. I thought it was exactly like in Star Trek Into Darkness when Kirk and Khan were flying around those asteroids. I thought it was exactly the same. Exactly the same. Stolen straight out of it. Including from Star Trek 2009, where the cocky guy gets killed. Just stolen completely out of it. And again, the hero has to save another character in some way. In Kirk and Sulu's case, Kirk jumps out the thing, grabs Sulu, and they're saved last minute by shipboard activities. And it's exactly the same thing here. Burnham has to grab onto Pike, and they are saved at the last minute by shipboard technobabble. Just exactly the same. Ripped off. Copy, don't be original, Larry says. Yes, and considering the director of this one, not a shock at all. The whole thing felt to me exactly like a Jar Jar Abrams Star Trek big dumb action movie, or B-Dam. If you like Jar Jar Abrams' Star Trek, you might like this, but to me, it feels like a desperate ratings grab. Other cringe moments, it was all predictable to me. There's a thing out there. Here's the plot. Here's the real plot out there. There's a thing out there. We have to check on the thing. Oh, there's people we have to rescue. It all works out in the end. But there is some big season-long mystery that's probably could be solved. You know, if you put this into the context of any other Star Trek, the probably whatever it is could be solved in 2 or 3 episodes. You know, you might get a 3-part arc out of it. But this is just going to be dragging along as we do little bits and pieces of, you know. When I get into the writers, you may see why this actually is. Great moments. I don't know. I really don't know. To me, there's nothing here. It is a superficial plot covered over by a B-Dam, a big, dumb action movie. So, I always like to call out my writers first. And one of the writers on this is Gretchen J. Berg. Her IMDb is 1999 to 2019, 14 producer credits. One of those translates into 51 episodes of Revenge, 39 episodes of Roswell, and 22 episodes of Mercy. She has 16 writer credits, her longest set of writing credits, and I think this is part of the reason that we see this show being something that's a season-long arc where you get little bits and pieces of characterization going on. One of her first gigs and longest gigs was 32 episodes of Beverly Hills 90210, a show that was basically an evening soap opera where you get little bits of characterization that might contribute to a larger arc. What a shock, we're seeing that here. Roswell's back as a reboot, is it? Oh, that's interesting. I'd be interested to watch and see what that looks like. That was not a bad show. She does also so far have 6 episodes of STD. That's what I'm going to call it from now on. I'm not going to call it Discovery or Star Trek. It's STD. I'm sorry, it's just STD. She also has 7 episodes where she wrote Paper Dennis and has won no awards. The other writer on this one is Aaron Aaron Harberts. His IMDb is 1999 to 2019 with 14 producer credits, 15 episodes of STD, 53 episodes of Revenge, 39 episodes of Roswell, and 22 episodes of Mercy. So these two people have worked together before. He has 16 writer credits, one of which translates into 6 episodes of STD, and one of the others translates into 32 episodes of Beverly Hills 90210. And this is why Star Trek feels like a evening soap opera, where you have a real plot that goes the whole season that maybe could be resolved in other Star Trek in 2 or 3 episodes. It's just going to go on and on and on, and it's one of the reasons I can't review this. And he's won no awards. Now, I would note, as Larry says, Larry says, STD deserves no respect. Well, it is an STD. Fortunately, it is an STD that you can get rid of, either by not watching it or waiting for it to die, which I think it's going to do. Larry mentioned that this thing is in some level of turmoil, and that is because both of these people, Berg and Harberts, are gone. They were the showrunners through season 2, episode 5, and they are gone after that. They were fired for being abusive, for screaming expletive at writers. Proving once more, as I have said 1 billion times, Hollywood, California, you will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. It is a place where horrible people do horrible things to other horrible people all the time on a daily basis. No wonder, it is no wonder whatsoever that STD has sucked to this point, because we got showrunners that are awful people, and they finally got fired. The interesting thing to me is I've worked for people like this before. I didn't wait around for them to get fired. I quit. So, STD is available in UK Netflix. Well, that doesn't shock me. If you look at my poster, doesn't say CBS All Access on it, does it? Kind of says something else. I hope it's visible. BootLockerTV.to. But yes, it is funny that it's available on Netflix, where in the United States it is not. Other writer on this is Ted Sullivan. He is not gone. His IMDb is 1986 to 2019 with 12 producer credits, which includes 14 episodes of STD and 23 episodes of Revenge. We are obviously seeing a lot of crossover here. He has 14 writer credits, 5 for episodes of STD, and he also has 28 episodes of Revenge. So one of those 14 credits translates into that. He also has 7 editor credits, 4 director credits, and 2 cinematographer credits, both of which were for shows he also produced, and he has won no awards. Writing on this, again, pretty much said it in my cringe moments. It feels like a big dumb action movie, steals directly from Star Trek and Star Trek Into Darkness, the Abrams movies. I think that in this case, Alex Kurtzman, who is the director, he had learned at Jar Jar Abrams' feet, and is just doing a lot of action with not really much plot involved. Larry says Shakespeare should have said to kill all the writers. Well, it wouldn't kill them, but it would fire them all, every single last one, and hire somebody who knows something about science fiction. To their credit, they read or watched something about Star Trek this year. They mentioned little bits of trivia that don't make the slightest sense in this context. They don't fit with the later canon that we've seen. Or the previous, for that matter. Again, look at the Enterprise behind me. This is the Enterprise as it appeared in The Cage, which is an adventure Pike would have already had by this point. Because in the first season of Star Trek, Spock says that The Cage occurred 13 years ago. This is 10 years before it would have been 3 years ago that this happened. Figuratively, of course, in terms of killing the writers. Yes, I understand. You were talking figuratively. I was just, yeah. Again, the writing just big dumb action movie wrapped around a plot that is pretty thin. Not much happens. Other series could have taken care of this in 2 or 3 episodes. Getting into characters, I won't call them all out. There's a lot of them in IMDb, some of whom did not actually even appear in this episode. IMDb lists number 1 as being in this episode. I didn't see number 1. Sarek is played by James Frey. Now, I'm calling out some IMDbs here because I think I did call them out last year when I reviewed the show, but all of those reviews were taken down by YouTube for unspecified community guidelines reasons. And so I'm going to call them out. This is, viewers be aware, I only do this once. If they're new to the show or something like that, I will call it out once. The next time we get to these guys, I don't do that. So Sarek is played by James Frame. His IMDb didn't catch when it started. It's currently up to 2019. He has 1 in post. And his acting credits include 7 episodes so far of STD, 24 episodes of The Tudors, 22 episodes of Gotham, and 10 episodes of 24 with no awards. his performance as Sarek. Okay, you guys, listen to me. I've said it a million times before. This character's name is Sarek, not Sarek. It's Sarek. Sarek. Say it with me. Sarek. Okay? Just, get that. Including you, James. Your character's name is Sarek. Okay. His performance is fine, but this character is written 100% wrong. It is part of the problem with giving Spock any kind of thing that remotely resembles a sibling. Sarek was a guy who was interested in Vulcan and its culture. Now, admittedly, he married a human, no question about that, but he raised a Spock to be a Vulcan. So for him to have all of this sympathy for a human is wrong. It's totally wrong. He should be... Let's be clear about this. Vulcans, as originally written, were damned near racists. They considered themselves above the humans. Spock certainly showed it over and over again. They were damned near racists. This character is written totally wrong. For him to have the kind of empathy that he does for Burnham completely undercuts everything that ever went on between he and Spock. Completely undercuts it. If he has this kind of empathy for Burnham, if he can show this kind of emotion for Burnham, then there's no reason that he can't show the same thing to his own biological son. Spock's whole character arc gets blown out of the way, completely blown out of the water. And in fact, Pike mentions at this point that Spock was really logical, but always made it clear that logic was only the beginning. You dumbasses. Spock's entire arc, from the original series all the way through the Star Trek the motion picture, is he believed logic was it. It was only at Star Trek the motion picture that he realized that it wasn't. And it was after that in other movies like Star Trek VI where he actually tells Valeris, logic is the beginning of wisdom. That was something he learned from Star Trek the motion picture. His entire arc up to that point was he thought logic was the only thing. So when you do that, when you have characters saying that about him, when you have Sarek being written in a way that he should have been far more empathetic toward his own son, if he's going to be empathetic towards an adopted human, his character no longer makes any sense. You can't give Spock a sibling, and you must have Sarek be somebody who is so dedicated to the Vulcan way of life that he's pushing his son to do that. And he gets upset when his son doesn't do it right. It's stupid. You can't have that. You just can't. Yeah, Sarek married many humans. Yeah, he had a thing for Earth girls. You never quite knew why. You never quite knew why. But clearly we saw him. He was in love with Amanda. There's no question about that. Larry Niven, great, brilliant science fiction author, Larry Niven. He once wrote just an outline for a show that he knew could never be produced. He never submitted it or anything like that. Larry says the reason is that Earth girls are easy. Well, you can have them anytime, as opposed to like only every 7 years. Larry Niven, he wrote this treatment, and he gave this theory. He gave a theory that the reason that Sarek married Amanda was because the Vulcans looked at the humans and they said, okay, these are people who are really going places. So in only a couple of 100 years, they've gone from no space flight to just about everything settled on Earth to starting to, be the big guys in the Federation. They were the biggest guys in the Federation. And the Vulcans said to themselves, it's very possible that this race could end up, being the dominant race throughout the galaxy. We have a very important thing to do. We must give them more intelligence. And so Sarek married Amanda so that they could get an offspring with more intelligence. And Spock's whole job in this treatment that Larry Niven did. Spock's whole job was to mate with as many women as possible so as to get these higher intelligence genetic traits spread throughout the race. It was a key plot point, in point of fact, in the little treatment he wrote. But I thought that was actually kind of funny. Maybe that's what Spock was supposed to do. He's blowing his calling. He's supposed to be screwing everybody in sight. We're going to call out Doug Jones as Saru. Again, James Frame's performance, his performance is fine. It's just that the character is written 100% wrong, and Burnham being anything like a sibling to Spock is 100% wrong. It kills Spock's lifelong arc. Yep, perfectly logical, exactly. So Saru, played by the Doug Jones, whose IMDb is 1987 to 2019 so far, with 2 announced, 4 in post, 1 completed, and of course he is working on Space Command, so we'll see how that goes. He has, from 1987 to 2019, 164 acting credits. He is a worker. He's done 17 episodes of STD, 28 episodes of Falling Skies, and again, he is working in a very important role in Space Command. He has won awards. He won the Austin Film Critics Association Award in 2017, a special honorary award for The Shape of Water for his exemplary body performance. Yes. Getting his performance, I'll say that. Yes, his exemplary body performance. He won the California Internet Independent Film Festival Award in 2018, the Lifetime Achievement. Lifetime Achievement? That's kind of early. I think this guy's got a ways to go. He won the Comicpalooza Film Festival Award in 2017, the Best Supporting Actor for My Friend Max. He won the Diabolical Horror Film Festival Award in 2018, Best Actor for Kiss the Devil in the Dark. He won the Fangoria Chainsaw Awards in 2009, the Chainsaw Award for Best Actor for Hellboy 2, The Golden Army, and he also won the Fangoria Hall of Fame. He won the Filmed in Utah Awards in 2016, Best Actor Short/Series for Kiss the Devil in the Dark. Won the Film Quest Award in 2014 for Film Quest Cthulhu Legacy Award. Any award that's got Cthulhu in it has got to be okay. He won the Independent Horror Movie Awards in 2018, Best Actor for Kiss the Devil in the Dark. We're seeing a bit of a pattern here. He won the Indiana Film Journalists Association Award in 2009, the Hossier Award, or Hossier, I'm not sure which, for My Name is Jerry. He won the Palm Springs International Film Festival Award in 2018 for the Chairman's Vanguard Award for The Shape of Water. Won the Palm Springs International Film Festival Award in 2018 for the Chairman's... Oh, sorry, I already did that one. I've got a double. He won the second Something Wicked Theater Festival Award in 2018, the Horror Icon Award for Kiss the Devil in the Dark. His performance here, he does not have a ton to do. This is clearly not his episode, but as always, I have a lot of respect for a guy who can be wearing nothing but appliances on any part of his body that shows, and nothing is real. That is so hard. Not even his eyes are real. That is so hard because actors need their bodies, their faces, to portray emotion. You can have all the emotion, on the inside that you want, but if you got all of this on, how do you get it out? Well, he does it through body language. He does it through body language, and sometimes it's very subtle body language. Sometimes it's somewhat larger. But, things like when those things on the back of his head went up, when, they're supposed to sense when people are dying, and he's touching it, he looks over at the person, what did you expect? And sort of tilts his head a little bit. That tells you something, and that's body language that he constantly uses. So his performance is great. He's got nothing to work with, just his body language, and he does very good with that. Then as Burnham, Sonequa Martin Green, IMDb is 2005 to 2020 listed. Larry says, computers will replace human actors more and more. I agree with you. There will be nothing but CGI actors at some point. Right now, we're on the verge of it. We have nothing but actors acting in CGI. So many things are just CGI, added on a green screen, added after the fact. Eventually, yes. I mean, look at all the motion capture. Eventually, computers are going to be able to automate that type of motion capture themselves. And yeah, we're going to see. I have always said, I mean, you probably couldn't do it now because it would be so politically incorrect. But I always thought at some point or another, we are going to see John Wayne movies again. It just won't be John Wayne. It will be a computer-generated John Wayne. So, Sonequa Martin Green has 21 acting credits to lists to 2020 because she has one in post. She has done 17 episodes of STD and 70 episodes of The Walking Dead. AI, machine learning. Yeah, I got something to say about that today. I have something really terrifying to talk about when it comes to the AI part of things. Yeah. She has won an award. She has won the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films Award in 2018. Best Actress on Television for STD. Oh, God. I guess I actually would have to say that the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films Award has very low standards or are virtue signaling. I do not find ever her performance all that interesting. I find it wooden. Very, very wooden. And I've seen enough personal appearances and press junkets now to know that she is actually capable of far more. Part of this is the writing. Part of this is her choices. I just don't see where she deserves Best Actress for anything. Her performance here is, for the most part, very, very understated. Even when she's figuring things out about important stuff, where Spock went, it's still not all that shocked. She's playing somebody, I guess, who was trained to be more Vulcan-like, and so she appears to the average person to be wooden. And that's the only way that I can describe her. It is absolutely not like Doug Jones. Doug Jones can portray emotion just with his body language, which he does very stiff, I don't know. I don't know what to say. Part of it's writing, part of it's her choices, but to me it's boring. It's just boring. You're going to have to let her be more human and less Vulcan. Please, please, write her that way. And then we have Captain Christopher Pike, as played by Anson Mount. Again, proof positive that this does not take place in the prime timeline. This is only 3 or so years after The Cage. He would not be this old. He simply wouldn't be this old. They're stealing this directly out of the the Jar Jar Abrams movies. They're stealing it straight out. He should not be this old. And they're stealing his characterization straight out of the Jar Jar Abrams movies. When we saw him in The Cage, he was far more businesslike and far less of a father figure. He was not a father figure. The last thing that we see him do in The Cage is, everybody's kind of like surprised about what just happened to him and asking questions, brushes them all off and says, what are we running here, a cadet ship? And by the way, I know this because before this episode aired, I was watching The Cage. I thought to myself, if I'm going to watch this with Captain Pike, I want to watch The Cage. No, he was real businesslike. He was real straightforward. What are we running here, a cadet ship? Get back on course, It's not a father figure, not the prime timeline. This is stolen straight out of the Jar Jar Abrams movies. Larry says, the most we know about Vulcans comes from Spock in original series and movies. Yeah, that's certainly true. But Spock was, intentionally logical and trying to push down his human side. This is a human being. I think she could be portrayed more as a human, particularly given all of the sympathy and empathy that Sarek has for her. That, again, makes no sense in the context of Spock's character. You guys have completely screwed up Spock's entire motivation throughout the original series and all the way to Star Trek the Motion Picture. You have blown it, blown it, blown it. It's why Spock having a brother in Star Trek 5 made no fracking sense. When you give somebody around a Spock, even if he doesn't like them like he appeared to here, it is going to affect him in some way. Are they going to put? By the way, are they going to put? Are they going to bring us Sybok back? I mean, nobody likes to think of him as canon, but he's in a canon movie. Is he going to be running around at some point soon? Because Spock actually seemed to be friends with him. It doesn't make any sense in the context of canon. Anson Mount, his IMDb is 1999 to 2019 with 48 acting credits, 1 in post, 13 episodes of STD, and 55 episodes of Hell on Wheels. He also has 5 producer credits, 1 of which is for 27 episodes of Hell on Wheels, so he was big with that, and has won no awards. His performance here is fine as a more fatherly Pike than what we saw in the original series. That Pike was not a father figure. His performance here is fine. And again, they're aping everything out of the Abrams movies with him. The point at which they've decided what they're going to do with these, I don't know, little probe ship things that, so they can fly through the asteroids just like they did in Star Trek Into Darkness and lose somebody like they did in Star Trek 2009. If you watch, when Pike has said, okay, Mrs. Sulu, come with me. Kirk, why don't you come along too? You're not even supposed to be here. And then they go walking through engineering while Pike explains the whole thing out to them. Same thing here. After they figure out what to do, they walk down corridors, places, while everything gets explained. It is stolen directly from Star Trek 2009. It is exactly the same scene with different people talking about it. Kurtzman, God, Again, performance is fine. No problems with his performance. It's just that in the context of larger canon, it doesn't make any damn sense. Other person on here, Tig Notaro as, Jet Reno. Her IMDb is 2004 to 2019 with 41 acting credits, 1 of which translates into 12 episodes of One Mississippi, and another one where she was in 9 episodes of The Sarah Silverman Show. She also has 12 writing credits, 12 of which were for One Mississippi, and also for 10 episodes of Inside Amy Schumer. Ew. She wrote 10 episodes of that? Yeah. Stick to acting, babe. Stick to acting. Stick to acting, please. She has 8 producer credits, 1 of which translates into 12 episodes of One Mississippi, and she has 9 director credits. She's also won awards. She won the Dances with Film Awards Fusion Section - Features for The Rat Thing. Not much to say about her performance here. My biggest criticism is not with her performance, it's how she's written. This is an engineer who has somehow kept people alive over a long period of time. And her excuse for this is, she says that medicine is just like engineering, it's just a different thing. No! No, writers, it is not. It is not. Engineering is not just like medical stuff. Ask any engineer if they could take somebody's broken body and put it back together, keep it alive. They can say, no, I don't know anything about even basic anatomy. I mean, maybe a little if you'd taken some biology in college, maybe some basic anatomy. But, you run a scalpel, do anything complicated, or whatever their medical technology is then. No. She's also said tripwires up around the ship. Wouldn't that be something just important to tell your captain who's coming to rescue you before they're like centimeters from hitting the tripwire? When they're coming down the hallway, shouldn't you turn to them and say, have the little things floating in the air, say, oh, by the way, I've got tripwires here. Walk carefully. I'll tell you when the next one is. Bad writing. Not her fault. Not her fault. I thought her performance was fine. But bad writing all the way around. Didn't make any damn sense. And, of course, we have Anthony Rapp as Paul Stamets, whose IMDb is 1987 to 2019 with 43 acting credits, 17 of which are for STD, and he has 8 soundtrack credits. He did Rent at some point. Actor is homosexual, and he did Rent. He has won an award. He has won Texas Film Awards, the Star of Texas Award for Dazed and Confused. So I don't know. I haven't seen that one. His performance here is fine. I do think it perfectly rational that after he's been on this ship with somebody, a husband-type person who has died, leaving the ship is something you might very well want to do. I suspect we're going to see a reversal of that for reasons. He's going to end up staying. But wanting to leave makes perfect sense. And Tilly being all upset about it, while I understand Tilly is to some extent supposed to represent the audience. I'll talk about that more in a bit. But being upset about actually upset about his leaving, it's a quasi-military organization. People get transferred and move around all the time. While, you give them a nice send-off sometimes, like we saw last week, in the Orville, it's a fact of life. People get transferred all the time. You just have to, when you first sign up, you just have to sign up knowing, okay, I'm going to get transferred around. Maybe I'll bump into some people that I knew before, but I'm going to get transferred around. But his performance is fine. He's a guy who wants to, leave. Again, poor writing. He's running, I don't know, like holograms or something of his dead lover in the middle of engineering? Don't you, go to engineering to do your job? When you save that stuff for, when you go back to your quarters. I mean, I first thought he was in his quarters when he was doing it, and then when Tilly interrupts him and all this stuff disappears, I'm like, you're doing that on the job? Okay, I get that you're sad that he's gone, but that's just obsessive. So again, bad writing. Bad writing. Not his fault. His performance is fine playing that, but bad writing. That should not happen there. You should be doing that at home. Just dumb. And of course, Mary Wiseman as Tilly. As I said, I started to talk about it. Tilly is the audience. When she feels a certain way, the audience is supposed to feel a certain way. And for the most part, that works. For the most part, that actually does work. And her being in the command program and really chatty and all that, that works as a young person. And I expect as we go along, we're going to see more of her evolving out of that and more into somebody who's a little more businesslike. But at the moment, she's being written as the character that the audience is supposed to identify with. When she feels a certain way, then the audience feels a certain way. The last season, that was one of the few bright spots. Here, it has been misplaced. Her talking to Burnham about losing 2 people in the same day. Okay, again, people get transferred all the time. Even at this point, this should be something she gets used to, right? She's in the academy, leaves the academy. People she knows are not all going to this one ship. They're all going spread around to wherever the Starfleet needs them. And so this shouldn't come as a shock, when Stamets decides to leave. It's like, okay, well, I'm sorry to see you go. You'll be missed. Are you sure you want to do that? I mean, you have a place here, But when he makes up his mind, say, okay, all right, well, hearty handshake, good hug goodbye. That would be it. And then going to, again, bad writing. Just bad writing. She's given it her all. She's giving it a good performance. Bad writing. When you go to Burnham, that's a point at which she could be legitimately worried, and the audience would feel that. If You know, if we didn't know that Burnham was going to live through all of this, you know, that's the problem, right? We know she's going to be okay through all of this. So when Tilly feels a certain way, the audience is no longer connected to her because we know that Burnham is going to be okay. It's just bad writing. It's just bad writing all the way around. And this from people who were abusive to other writers. These guys can't write themselves out of a wet paper bag. And they were being abusive to other writers. Anyway, just to call them out, Mary Wiseman has an IMDb from 2012 to 2019 with a 1 completed but not yet released. She has 11 acting credits. One of those translates into 17 episodes of STD so far, including a couple of episodes, some more of the Star Trek Short Treks. By the way, a name that I have started to use myself for when I want to do short things, such as when I talked about the Gillette ad that came out. If you've not seen that, please go look. It's on. It should figure fairly prominently. You can look at my videos. It's there. It's called Gillette Has a Culture of Rape, and I invite you to watch that. It's a bit of a satire. And she has won no awards. Again, her performance is fine. She is hampered by really crappy writing. And then there's everybody else. I mean, there were a lot of characters listed in here. There was a ton of people listed in IMDb. They did the thing where they went around the bridge and introduced themselves. That made sense. But really, those people don't do much of anything. You know, they're running consoles. They're not really characters per se. Maybe we'll see more of that as time goes on, and if so, I will call them out. But, you know, they weren't doing anything complex there, so I'm not. What do you say? Okay, the production aspects of this. Alex frackin' Kurtzman. Alex... Oh, God. You're running the show. You got a crappy script. Tell them to rewrite it. His IMDb, I forgot when it started here. I didn't catch it, didn't write it down for some weird reason. Sorry about that. He has 7 announced, 2 in pre-production, 42 producer credits, 16 episodes of STD, 150 episodes of Hawaii Five-0, 90 episodes of Scorpion, 87 episodes of Fringe, 61 episodes of Sleepy Hollow, 57 episodes of Transformers Prime, 55 episodes of Alias. He did the Star Trek 2009 film. He did Star Trek Into Darkness. He did The Mummy in 2017, in which he was supposed to be one of the brainchilds behind Universal's failed Dark Universe. And 25 episodes of Salvation. He also has some writing credits, one which is shelved, which is Bride of Frankenstein, which may never see the light of day after the Dark Universe collapsed in on itself. He has 28 episodes of STD that he has written, 203 episodes of Hawaii Five-0 he wrote The Mummy, 100 episodes of The Fringe, 62 episodes of Sleepy Hollow, and 156 episodes of Hercules, The Legendary Journey. He has 5 directing credits, one of which is for STD, this one, and also he directed The Mummy. He has won the following awards. The Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films Award in 2010. He got the George Pal Memorial Award. I wonder why. He won a Daytime Emmy. Okay. Just get these awards, because he's got a lot of producer credits. That's great. A lot of producer credits, but a producer's job on a television show is to make sure that the show gets made. It's really to make sure they've got the money and the episodes. Today it's not as strict as it was in the 60s, but the episodes show up basically when they need to air or release them. That's the producer's job. That's the producer's whole job. He won, as I say, a George Pal Memorial. He also won a Daytime Emmy for Outstanding Special Class Animated Program for Transformers Prime, an animated show. Just to be clear, he won 1 Emmy for that. He has also won the Razzie Award in 2010 for Worst Screenplay for Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. Okay. This guy, Paramount has put, CBS has put all their backing into this guy running Star Trek. Apparently because he did 2 of the most successful of the 3 Jar Jar Abrams versus Star Trek. That is the only real reason. If you look at his IMDb, if you look at his awards, If you look at the fact that he was supposed to be behind the dark universe that fell to pieces, crashed, and burned, this is not a guy that I would put in charge of this at all. It really isn't. Maybe just as a producer, the guy that makes sure they have the money and the guy that makes sure the episode shows up more or less on time. Otherwise, no, I would not be placing my hopes on Star Trek in him, and I think it shows. His direction, well, the action, just like in the Star Trek films, the Jar Jar-verse Star Trek films, the action is over the top. It is just over the top like his Star Trek films, completely over the top. The characters are doing things and running around, getting things done to them that would kill an ordinary human being. There's a scene in Star Trek Beyond, I think. This isn't Kurtzman's, but it's consistent with the series. Maybe it's in Star Trek Into Darkness. I really don't remember exactly where it happens. But Kirk is sliding down an incline that is like this, right? It's like 50 feet down. And he slides down this thing, and fortunately, due to CGI, he survives. No. In real life, if you are at the top of something 50 feet down and you slide down something that's like less than a 45-degree angle even, you just get crushed at the bottom. And that's the sort of thing we see here. It is over-the-top action. It is what contributes to it being a big, dumb action movie, a B-dam. His camera work does not, at least, suffer from what I called the original series problem, which, if you want to find out about the original series problem, there's a link to it in my description box below. It does not suffer from that. It is definitely very fluid. However, it suffers from the Jar Jar Abrams Star Trek problem. This is where everything has to constantly be moving around. Okay. Especially in the action scenes. They're very, very frenetic. There's got to be a balance here. There's got to be a balance. When I talked about moving the camera around the bridge when people talking, I didn't mean about slam moving the camera around all the time. I meant that you can take slow shots. When things are slow, you can take slow shots, not just zing, 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 all over the place. It's just like watching Jar Jar Abrams Star Trek. It is too much. You know, the only thing missing from this that would make it just like Jar Jar Abrams Star Trek is lens flares. That's the only thing missing from this. It is too much. And, you know, there is a middle ground to be had. Now, I also have to wonder if this kind of direction isn't being thrown into this first episode to grab people who like this kind of action movies, because this is exactly the sort of direction that we saw one time and one time only in the first season, which was episode 1. And then the direction of the cinematography became much more standard to television. It was one time. And that one episode, they blew the budget on. I read the backstage stuff. They spent so much money on that one episode, they had problems with their budget later on. I'm wondering if we aren't seeing the same thing here. They're blowing a ton of money on this first episode, and then we're going to settle back into more conventional directing. I don't know. We will see. We will see. Cinematography could not find a picture of Glenn Keenan, the cinematographer whose IMDb runs 1991 to 2019, with 10 cinematographer credits, including 13 episodes of STD and 26 episodes of Nikita. He also has 12 electrical and camera department credits, which usually means you're the guy behind the camera. He has 2 acting credits and 1 special effects credit, and has won no awards. Okay, don't know where to tell how much is Kurtzman versus him. Knowing Star Trek and what work Kurtzman has done on it, I would have to say probably it's mostly Kurtzman. One always hopes that there is a collaboration between the director and the cinematographer, where the director can say, I want this shot. Cinematographer says, I can get that for you, but what if we tweak it slightly and make it a little more dramatic? Here, I would have to guess it was all on Kurtzman. Kurtzman said, I want this shot. And sorry, I got to check his name. Keenan said, okay, we'll get you that shot. And when you do that, you have to fall back on 2 standby questions. Did you know what you were supposed to look at? And could you see what you were supposed to see? The answer is not always in both cases. There was too much frenetic camera work and too much special effects to be able to know what you were supposed to look at and see what you were supposed to see, particularly when the ship was, the Hiawatha was going haywire and about to be destroyed. That was just too frenetic. It's like, where the hell am I supposed to look at this? What the hell is going on beyond all of this crashing down stuff and destroying everything? Where's Burnham? Where is she in relation to all this stuff? Where am I supposed to look? So from that perspective, the cinematography was not effective. It was not effective. You couldn't always see what you were supposed to see, and you didn't always know what you were supposed to look at. This is one that just blew my mind, right? This I could not figure out. I looked and I looked and I looked and I could not figure out. There's nothing listed in IMDb. The end credits do not list it. There is no one listed as having done the score for this. There are music editors. There is someone who's called a music wrangler. I have no idea what a music wrangler is, but they are listed. There's no one listed as having done any original music for the show. Are they? I don't know the scores well enough because I hated Discovery enough last season, and I didn't sit and listen to those scores really hard, so I could pick out, individual themes and things like that. Are they using stock from last episode? Last season? Maybe they are. Maybe this is where they started to run out of money, so they couldn't pay a composer to write new music for this episode. I don't know, but it's not credited. There is no credited composer for this show. Don't know why. In terms of the music itself, forgettable. I'm sure it underscored the action fine because I would have noticed it if it hadn't, but otherwise completely forgettable. I will not walk away remembering a single cue out of this at all. Production design was by Tamara Deverell, whose IMDb is 1991 to 2019, with 37 production designer credits. 21 of those production designer credits translates into 22 episodes of STD. Another one is 46 episodes of The Strain, and another one, 28 episodes of Suits. Now, she has won awards. She won the Directors Guild of Canada Award in 2008, the Directors Guild of Canada Team Award for a feature film / family for Breakfast with Scott, no idea. 2004, she won the same Directors Guild of Canada Award. She won the Outstanding Team Achievement in a Feature Film for Blizzard. 2002, Outstanding Achievement in a Television Series for Degrassi, The Next Generation. Her design. Okay, all right. The general technology and stuff. Taken out of context with the prime timeline because it does not fit anywhere. Then I would say the tech is good. It is looking forward from today and trying to project from today what would things look like. Again, I've said it before, I understand why they updated the technology in this, but updating the technology to this degree, again, takes it out of the prime timeline. It has said to us, the prime timeline is over there on a shelf, and whatever else you do, you give Spock a sister or something stupid like that, make Sarek something he never could have been for it to make sense to Spock. Okay, as far as that goes, fine. The technology looks good, but again, it totally takes it out of the prime timeline. On the Hiawatha, another thing in this film that was over the top, with the ship coming apart and everything, right? I understand that's fine for a certain level of mood setting for this is bad, we're in bad shape. But between that, the direction, the cinematography, everything else going on, it was just too much. It was hard for the eye to follow. I didn't know what I was supposed to look at. I couldn't see what I was supposed to see, and the production design was part of it. It all got in the way. Yes, we want the camera to be more fluid, But this was too much. This was Jar Jar Abrams too much. It was just too much. Now, as the visual effects supervisor, because again, the effects here are really just an army, we have Leslie Chung. I'm calling her out because of she's the person who is supposed to be in charge of all this stuff. IMDb is 2004 to 2019 with 1 announced, 65 special effects credits, one of which is for 18 episodes of STD and another 12 episodes of Boardwalk Empire, and has won no awards. Okay, the special effects. Again, the general tech, taken out of the context of the prime timeline, is pretty good. The tech is, as always, taking a look from today and pushing forward. We're saying, what will the future like pushing forward from today? And it makes a certain level of sense. Trust me, we're going to be wrong. We always are. Every time we put something in science fiction that we're looking forward, we're always wrong. But, you know, it looks good from that. But again, it takes it out of the prime timeline. None of this can happen in the prime timeline. And again, on the Hiawatha, the technology was over the top. The ship was coming apart. It was fine for setting a mood, but between that, production design, direction, cinematography, it was all confusing. The costume designer could not find a picture of this person. I think it's female. Gersha Phillips. IMDb is 1995 to 2019 with 49 costume designer credits. 5 for episodes of Star Trek Discovery, or STD. 4 episodes of the short tracks. 9 episodes of Falling Skies. And one of the interesting ones that I noticed was a TV movie, I think it was TV movie, Evel Knievel. That is a name that is extremely familiar to anyone who grew up in the 1970s, as I did. Evel Knievel was a very famous daredevil motorcyclist at that time. One of his most famous accidents, because he had a lot of them. He tried to jump a whole bunch of stuff. It's the Caesar's Palace jump. In front of Caesar's Palace in Vegas. Tried to jump all this stuff. Came down wrong. Badly, got tangled up inside of his motorcycle, damn near killed him, broke a ton of bones, and he still came back afterwards. He decided that he was going to try to jump the Grand Canyon on a motorcycle. Well, that didn't work so well. He figured out he couldn't do that, so he tried to do it in what amounted to a rocket. And that didn't go all the way over. My father, Evil was a literal train wreck, Larry says, yeah. My father suggests, and I kind of agree with him, I didn't know what he meant at the time because I was too young. There comes a point in almost everyone's life, and it's different for everybody, but there comes a point at which you become aware of your own mortality. You realize, oh, I can actually die. And my father says that he thinks when he was alive, he thought for Evel Knievel, that moment came when he crashed that rocket. After getting smashed up all the time in these rides he would try. When that rocket crashed, he finally figured it out, because after that, basically retired. But I was amused that she did a movie on him. She also has 14 costume and wardrobe designer credits, most often credited as assistant costume designer, which makes sense. You move your way up. You know, you're assistant costume designer, and then you become a costume designer in your own right. So that makes sense. And has won no awards. Her costumes here are fine. Again, completely taking this show out of the prime timeline. These uniforms have never been what they were at this time period in the prime timeline. And their attempt to make the Enterprise uniforms look more like the uniforms in the prime timeline is completely off. It is not in the prime timeline. I watched The Cage right before this thing came out. This is not in the prime timeline. It cannot fit in the prime timeline in any way, and part of that is the costuming. Taken out of that context, costuming is fine. I actually prefer the Enterprise uniforms they're wearing, and I wish everybody would change to them. I think it's a much better uniform. But takes it out of the prime timeline. Makes it look a lot more like Jar Jar Abrams' Star Trek. So, end of that review. Fortunately, I'm going to hit about 2 hours only. Is it any good. Well, it felt like Jar Jar Abrams' Star Trek. If you like that big, dumb action movie stuff, it will be exciting for you and not much plot behind it, just like Jar Jar Abrams' Trek. Fortunately, it didn't make me want to throw things at my screen. I liked Pike, although, again, this continues to confirm that this cannot possibly occur in the prime timeline. It is its own alternate universe. Nothing about it can possibly occur in the timeline. As usual, setting up a season-long arc, which means that we will have very little action or very little plot in any given episode, and it's probably going to bore me. And if they do anything like they're doing now, it's going to be a big, dumb action movie. If it's not, it's going to be soap opera. And that bores me and makes me irritated. And, I just don't like it. Again, I was befuddled by the lack of a music credit. What the hell was going on there? Why didn't they have a composer listed? What the hell? And again, everything I know there is so much that's achieved in post. How do you do a traditional review of saying this person did good, that person did good, when you know that half the time they're in front of a green screen or things are being added in the foreground or the background, even if they're not? It's just, all I can say is, man, always know where your towel is. It's what makes it hard to do this sort of thing. It wasn't horrible. It was not horrible. Again, horrible is when Burnham starts a war for no good reason. When the answer to that question is Klingons say, we don't want to be around you guys at all. The answer is, okay, no problem. Let us know if you want to. We're out of here. In a ship that looks like this. But at least it didn't do that. It starts out on a little bit brighter note. We will see how it goes on. And I continue to say, most people don't know what a Mary Sue is. You really don't know what a Mary Sue is. People talk about characters being Mary Sues. They're wrong. They're wrong. They're wrong. A Mary Sue is a character where the author or the writer has written themselves in as a major character. That is a Mary Sue. Someone who's perfect all the time is not a Mary Sue. It's very specifically when the writer has taken themselves and written themselves into the story as an integral character. So Burnham is not a Mary Sue. Burnham is probably virtue signaling perfect. That's what she really is. The end of last season, despite the fact that she did end the war, she should still have been, you might have said this to her, okay, in recognition for the fact that you did end the war that you started and millions, perhaps billions of people were killed in, we will not send you to prison, but you are cashiered, get out. That's the sort of thing, I suspect it was a male character, a white male character, they would have done. But because it's black woman, they have to virtue signal. But we'll see what happens. At least this season, she didn't start a war for no good reason. There's that. All right, I got a little bit of news commentary. Oh my God. I don't know where to begin with this. Elon Musk wants to wire an AI chip into your skull attached to your brain. The chip would then give you the digital intelligence needed to process beyond the limits of our biological intelligence. This would mean full incorporation of artificial intelligences into our bodies and minds. He argues that without taking this drastic measure, humanity is doomed. And he says, quote, "My faith in humanity has been a little shaken this year, but I'm still pro-humanity." Okay, as somebody who spent 40 years in IT, man and boy, I must tell you this. There is no such thing as a non-hackable device. Just no such thing. Anything that works off of electromagnetism produces a radio signal, no matter how tiny. Your phone produces a radio signal. Your electric outlet and it produces an a radio signal. The cords produce a radio signal. No matter how infinitesimally small, it produces a radio signal. And I know of black hats who have hacked computers through these signals that are present in USB ports. There is no such thing as a non-hackable devices. As we fix, because I was in IT security, it's one of my specialties. As fast as we fix the vulnerabilities, more are found. It is a constant game of catch-up in IT security. It is never where you are in front of it. You are never in front of the vulnerabilities. You are always behind it. Always. It is why you will never see a smart device in my home, like an Alexa or something like that. Never. I don't care. It's hackable, among many other things. And it is why I am, in fact, extremely uncomfortable with having this phone that is on right now. Okay, Google. Shut up. It's listening to me all the time. It's listening to me all the time. And we know now for a fact that it's sending that information back to Google. I'm extremely uncomfortable with that thing, and you will never see anything smarter than that in my home. And the next phone that I get will be hackable so that I can remove all of that. So Google is not listening to me all the time. But the average person can't do that. Average person doesn't have my experience. They can't do that. Larry says cat and mouse. Yes, that's very much the case with hackers and IT security is cat and mouse. They are always ahead of us. Always. These will be hackable devices. No question whatsoever. And then there's the potential for government abuse. And trust me, they will. Since 9/11, people who grew up as millennials do not know that our government in the United States, our federal government, is totally unconstitutional. It has turned, since 2001, turned the United States into a 24/7 surveillance state. It is headed toward an outright police state. 99.99999999999 repeating of what the federal government does is utterly unconstitutional by any sane reading of the document. The problem is we are now raising a generation of illiterate ignoramus who have never read that document, and so they think the government can do anything they want. They're not supposed to be doing this. If you do this, if you put this in your head, government will have access to your brain. Your thoughts will no longer be your own. You will not be a free individual. You will be a drone, a chess piece, controlled by others, and you won't even know it. There's also the corporate abuse. We now know, of course, Facebook, Twitter, Google, Apple, they already collect all the data about you that they can. Even if I've killed, as I have, my Facebook account, they are still collecting data via other applications. And they have already addicted you to their platforms via an addiction to a dopamine rush, which I have discussed in other videos. I'll put a link to it. And it's not just me. The Journal of American Psychology or something like that, I'll put the link to it below after I'm done, has done a study and an article. You are addicted to a dopamine rush. When you have a chip in your brain, they can not only control dopamine, they can control almost anything else they want to control, just like government. Your thoughts will no longer be your own. You will not be a free individual. You will be a drone, a chess piece, and you won't even know that you are being controlled by others. This is the single most terrifying idea I've ever heard. If you get one of these, you will no longer be human. You will no longer even be you. You will be entirely, 100%, completely controlled by someone else. You will not be a free individual. You will be a chess piece, a drone, controlled by others, and you won't even know it. If Elon Musk wants to do this, I advise him to get one first. let's let you be the first one and leave you alone for about 5 years and just watch what happens to you. Get one of these, you will not be yourself. You will not be a free individual. You will be a drone, a chess piece, controlled by others, and you won't even know it. And as Larry says, the Gene Roddenberry quote that always, always accompanies the very end of my videos, ultimate power in this world has always been one simple thing: the control and manipulation of minds. You put a chip in your head, you will be controlled and manipulated. You will not be a human being. You will not be yourself. You will not have your own thoughts. It is a terrifying idea. Okay. I'm off my soapbox. So, I guess in closing, I will try to do a bit of ad copy in the immortal style of Ernie Anderson, one of those voiceover guys you heard. Monday on Tales from SYL Ranch. Captain Carter arrives on the USS Farragut and must investigate the disappearance of a Starfleet officer and a secret Klingon weapon. Now, Carter must resolve this crisis while learning what it means to be the captain of a starship. That's Monday on the Fandi Masters review of Starship Farragut, Episode 1, The Captaincy. Then, next Friday, on Tales from SYL Ranch, the Orville makes first contact. Now, a new crew member joins the ship. That's next Friday on the Fandi Masters review of the Orville Season 1, Episode 5, All the World is a Birthday Cake. And, as an aside, Fox, can you get me some better synopses or ad copy? Because these are boring. My schedule, Larry asks, where can we see the entire Farragut episode? If you search for The Captaincy here on YouTube. There are multiple parts, but I think maybe the Starship Farragut site has one. I will poke around and see if I can't find it. It's here on YouTube. It's here on YouTube. You just have to search for, like, Starship Farragut and Captaincy or something like that, or Starship Farragut E1. I'll find it. I'll put it at the bottom of the description when I get it after I'm done here. So as always, my schedule is I am here live Mondays and Fridays in North America at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Mountain, 6 p.m. Pacific, and if you're working off of UTC, that'll be 2 a.m. the next morning. My upcoming reviews, of course, every Friday, I am doing a mini review of that week's Orville until the season ends. I will do a mid-season review of STD and an end-season reviewed STD. You tried, just found pieces, not all. I'll find it for you. I know it's all out there. It's just obscure. It's really obscure. I know what they've done. I know what you're talking about. When it took me a while to find them. Then Mondays after Starship Farragut on the 28th, I'm reviewing King Kong from 1933. February 4th, the 60th anniversary review of First Man into Space. February 11th, the 60th anniversary review of The Cosmic Man. And if you want to see more, you can go to my schedule at www.wrstone.com. Click on the schedule on the sidebar, and you will see a nice calendar. And if you want to click on any individual thing, I'll make sure it gets put on that calendar as well, Larry, where you can find this. If you click on any given item, you may well see a place that you can get it for free. And I invite you to have a close look at the black bar on the bottom of that thing. So I guess at this point I might ask something like this.
Say, pardon me, but could you help out a fellow American who's down on his luck?
Hit the road!
So if you like what I'm doing, please like, sub, hit the notification bell, tell all your friends, family, neighbors, pets, and livestock to do the same. If you want to contribute to me, I have a PayPal tip jar that is listed below, and also some other ways to contribute via Amazon wishlist on my website, one of which is for a laptop that will make all of my technical issues disappear. I'll be able to come at you at probably 24 to 30 frames per second rather than the 10 frames I'm doing now. And if you buy it for me outright, you get to be the program director on my show. You can tell me exactly what to do, when to do it, and what time to do it. And again, you can see all of this at my website at www.wrstone.com. Always must thank my viewers who are supporting me, particularly one of them who's watching me now. I thank you for supporting me. As always, I can't say it. I mean, there's only like 10 ways I can say this. I get a kick out of the fact that you think, A, that my opinions are worth something, and B, that it takes me back to a certain degree to my acting days. I'm not acting. I'm real. I know there are YouTubers who are just playing a role. One of them has become extremely popular recently, and I used to really agree with him until I realized he's just playing a character. Jeremy of Geeks and Gamers. I think he's playing a character now. I think he figured out that his niche is he's political and geek. And so that has brought him success. And so on Twitter, I had to completely unsubscribe from him because every 10 minutes he was throwing out something new and inflammatory. I think he's playing a character now. I am not playing a character. I'm doing a little bit of showmanship, but I am not playing a character. So thank you. I appreciate this and everybody who has contributed to me and continues to do so. So I am not a character. I am a real guy who's doing just a little bit of showmanship. So that is all the time that we have today, boys and girls. So tune in again on Monday for my review of Starship Farragut. Until then, this is Tales from SYL Ranch, the vlogcast that reminds you to always know where your towel is. And I'm your host, Bill Stone.
Ultimate power in this world has always been one simple thing: the control and manipulation of minds.